Now we're starting with a bang. Nothing gives you more of a pump starting out with kids in the program. And I think that's going to be a message as we start and finish today. Kids are our focus. You're going to see that. And just hearing that drum line, I can feel that beat in my chest. And I hope you guys, if you haven't been waking up this early, you're awake now. You're not going to miss them coming. So we're going to start our program right. We're going to have our Magicals come out with Mr. Mike Peterson to sing our national anthem. So if you could please rise.
What's so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, where so gallantly streamed, and the rockets rang glad, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the hope of the brave?
Welcome again. We're going to start our program this morning with our first welcome by our school board president, Miss Elizabeth Egan. She's going to make a couple quick comments and introduce the school board. So Miss Egan, thank you.
Good morning. I have two tough acts to follow, don't I? Well, welcome back. It's nice to see everyone here. Let me start with an introduction of our school board. Vice President Kelly Horst. Secretary Steve Heyer. Treasurer Greg Need. Trustee Cheryl McGinnis. Trustee Susan Boatman. And Trustee Andrea Catalina is not here this morning because she is at her opening day at Wild Lake. She left Holly and is now going to be teaching at the Early Childhood Center in Wild Lake. So a shout out to Andrea for serving on our board. And while I'm giving shout outs, I would like to recognize and honor our retiring trustee, Susan Boatman. She was elected in 2008. She will have served 10 years when her term ends December 31st this year. She's served as trustee, secretary, vice president, and she has been a member of the Policy, Finance, and Student Reinstatement Committees. She's served many years as the legislation liaison for Oakland County School Board Association and as a representative on the Teaching and Learning Council. So thank you, Mrs. Boatman. Come on up. I'm going to make her walk up here and get this. So that's why I asked. Yes. Well, congratulations. Thank you. So last week at New Teacher Orientation, I just made a few remarks about how exciting it is for our kids. January 1st is not really their Happy New Year time of the year. It's really going to be August 27th this year. And I was noticing some of the pictures that kids are starting to post. They've got their first day of school outfit ready. The parents are getting cameras ready, right? They're starting to think about if there are kindergartners, their first bus ride. So it's a really exciting day for these kids. And they have all these different rituals. And I know you're ready too, because you've been coming in and you're getting your classrooms ready, and it's just a very exciting time of year, and we can just feel all that anticipation and excitement for our kids. So I'm glad you're here. I'm happy to welcome you. Our administrative and board is also ready. We had a very productive retreat early in August. Got a lot accomplished. We used some really good facilitation tools. We're moving ahead now on the strategic plan. So we're pretty excited to get moving this year. I want to finish with just one final remark. It was 7 days ago, I was on this stage, and it wasn't one of the happier moments for me, and I think for all of us. But I wanted to let you know that Dr. Rock, our former superintendent, has landed on his feet, and he will be starting, yep. And I think he's really right where he belongs. He's going to be teaching educational leadership to graduate students at New Mexico Highland University. So I'm just thrilled. I'm very happy for him. So speaking of superintendents at this time, I'm happy to give the podium back to our new superintendent, Mr. Sean Ryan.
Thank you, Ms. Egan. Next, on behalf of the CEA, Mr. Darrell Bialis, I'd like to say a couple words as well to welcome everybody. So big round for Mr. Bialis.
Thanks, Sean. Buenos dias. All right. So I know that most of you know me, but there are some of you that don't. My name is Darrell Bialis, and I'm starting my 21st year here as a Spanish teacher at Clarkston High School. Wow, 21. I can't believe that I've been here that long. I was thinking just this morning that in another year or two, I will have been teaching as long as some of our new hires have been alive. So that's a feat. I know that one of these days, I'm going to start seeing students of former students. How many of you have had students of former students? Okay, so I'm going to need some advice because I know that's coming. I'm also the president of the Clarkston Education Association, and I'd like to thank Sean for this opportunity to welcome you all back. About 2 weeks ago, I had lunch with Sean and Nancy, and after talking about summer happenings, we spent some time looking ahead to this year and where we're going as a district and how to move forward. The conversation made me think of all of the initiatives that have come and gone over the years. For those of us that have been around a while, we've seen the pendulum swing back and forth, back and forth. But the one thing that we've been focusing on recently is what's really important in my opinion, and it's something that we've always been working on, even though it might not have been the initiative du jour, and that's relationships. Forging positive relationships with your students and showing them that you truly care about them is what matters. It's not about the content you teach or scoring that umpteenth assessment that you have to give. Many of us in this room got into this profession because we wanted to make a difference in the lives of our students. And let's be honest, they're most likely not going to remember you for something you taught in your curriculum, but they're going to remember you because you cared about them. That's what makes the difference. Speaking of making a difference, we do have an opportunity this fall to make a big difference. We have the opportunity to elect Friends of Education this November. We need people in Lansing that will choose to properly fund our great public schools and provide us all with the resources that we need to make those individual connections with kids and help them learn. And if that's important for you, there are two things that I hope you will do. Number one, obviously vote in November. And number two, consider donating to PAC. Visit the CEA's PAC table out by that wonderful coffee that we provided for you this morning. Every little bit helps, and you don't need to be a CEA member to donate to PAC. Now, I don't know about you, but last year was a pretty rough one for me personally. My year started out with the news that my wife Jenny had been diagnosed with cancer. That in itself was a punch to the gut. And the months that followed were no picnic. Then we lost our superintendent. Now, I'm happy to say that the First Lady is cancer-free and doing great. Thank you. And we've got a new leadership team at Central Office that I know is going to continue to move us forward and keep Clarkston Community Schools a great place to work and learn. So a round of applause for Sean, Nancy, and John. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be back this year. I'm excited to start a new year, fresh, clean slate, ready to get in there with those kids and make a difference. I also know that at the secondary level, we're going to continue our professional learning on mental health this year. But as we focus on the mental health of our students, I want you all to focus also on your mental health and the mental health of your colleagues. If you don't take care of yourselves and each other, you can't be there for your students. Don't let work consume you. Have fun. Have fun this year. Have fun with your students. Have fun with your colleagues. We're going to have a little fun right now. Have you heard of the fun theory? Yes? So I think we all know that studies have shown that people learn more when they're having fun. So let's have a little fun. And I have to give credit where credit is due. I'm stealing this idea from Nancy Mahoney, who used us with us mentors at our mentor training on Monday. So I have a quarter right here, and one of you lucky people is going to walk out of here 25 cents richer. Okay? So there may also be a surprise twist, so please hope you play along. All right, everybody, stand up. Yep, even you up there in the bleachers, way up at the top. Those people hiding in the dark that we can't see, I know you're up there. So, I'm going to flip a coin, and I want you to call it, heads or tails. So if you think it's going to be heads, I want you to put your hands on your head. If you think it's going to be tails, I want you to put your hands on your waist. Okay? So here we go. Let's go. We got to move quick because Sean's only giving me 5 minutes. Oh. Got it.
Certifying.
Tails.
It
All
is
right.
tails.
So if you had tails, you're out. Sit down. I'm sorry. You're in. You're in. Heads. You chose heads. You're out. All right. Here we go. Heads, tails. Make the call. Make the call. Ready? Tails again. All right. You ready? Here we go. Heads. All right, here we go. Tails. Here we go. Heads. Ready? Heads. Here we go. Tails. Who's left? I can see a few. All right, here we go. Tails. Oh, we still got a few. Anybody left up top? No? No? Okay. Heads. Oh, upper bowl is, oh, no, we got one in the upper bowl. Who's that back there? McGlennon. All right, we can't let McGlennon win. Here we go. Tails. What? Is that everybody? We got one? Two. Is that it? Just two? Okay, now we're going to end this, so you have to choose differently, okay? One of you has to pick heads, one of you has to pick tails. Make your call. All right, here we go. And it's heads. Come on down. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Okay, name, rank, and serial number.
I'm Cynthia Sheffield. I'm a para at SMS for the ASD program.
Awesome, round of applause. So, here's your 25 cents. But now, don't go anywhere. You can't really buy much with 25 cents these days, right? So I'm going to treat you to lunch. Here you go. Okay, round of applause. Yep. Hold on, wait. Hold on. Cynthia, come back here. Eating alone is not fun, right? Right? So here, take a colleague to lunch, have a good time. Okay? So I just want to wrap up by saying, remember, please take care of your students this year, take care of yourself, and take care of each other. Okay, that's how we make it through. Have fun this year. Have a great year.
Thank you, Mr. Briales. We definitely believe in fun. But we also like to give some good welcomes here this morning. First of all, I believe we have 29 new teachers. Can you please stand up so we can recognize and embarrass you? Welcome you. That's right, you're in good company. Don't be afraid. Thank you. Also, a couple, as Mr. Bial said, we have a couple new positions at central office. I want to recognize just quickly to stand Ms. Nancy Mahoney, our new Assistant Superintendent of Instruction. Mr. John Lucido, our Operations Assistant Superintendent. All right. And Ms. Roddick Isaac, our Data Coordinator, Administrator. It's going to be a good team. Looking forward to a great year. And as we look back this past summer, hopefully you had time to do that rest and recoup, reset and recharge. And that you're all here with a sense of excitement that I am. Because you see, not only do I get to say a couple words, but I have my own band. Daryl, where you at? Did you bring a band? Okay, Donnie. Well, now that I have a band, take it back even further old school, I got an orchestra. Is that like 1940s? Anybody have 50 years in? They can remember back in the orchestra days? No? Okay. Hopefully they're home sleeping still. But looking back, thinking as we already had some recollections of going into the school year, it was a heck of a spring and summer. Me personally, started a new job, many of you know. I welcomed home my son after his first year of college. Kind of an emotional moment. Now I'm ready for him to go back. For those in the crowd who can feel me on that, I love him, but it's a lot different than last year. So for Glenn, others who took their kids to school for the first time this fall, you know, you have that, you feel like a piece is being ripped out of you. It gets put back in next summer. So I'm looking forward to some point as he says, Dad, a lot of the upperclassmen end up going home and living with their parents after school. Making me a little nervous, I'm just going to say. So for you new teachers out there that are still living at home as you start, remember, have some mercy on your parents, right? We're going to get you out of there. And lastly, I lost my mother after a long illness. So it was really kind of a huge mix of emotions this summer. It was tough and reflective, but inspiring. And I was fortunate enough at the end of July to be able to go up to the Upper Peninsula. My family and I actually travel about 550 miles up to the far end of the UP in the Keweenaw Peninsula. You guys know it's like those people who use the Michigan map. Just south of Copper Harbor. Literally, you can go miles without seeing other people. It's really a place to kind of not only reconnect with your kids, but you kind of reconnect with your spirit. And one of my favorite places up there is called the White City. And it's not really a city, it's kind of like Bailey Lake. For new teachers out there, there's really no lake, okay? Little hint. Or at least there's one, I still haven't found it. But the White City is on the top corner of the Keweenaw, where the Portage Canal, because really the Keweenaw is really an island, it's not even actually a peninsula, connects. And back at the turn of the century, the Army Corps of Engineers built a kind of a pier and a lighthouse that separates the two halves of the Keweenaw Peninsula. And it's back where the big ore boats used to travel through. Of course, 100 years pass, pretty much everything is gone. So there's absolutely no city. But what you see up there is this pier that I sit on. I sit there and I look out over the horizon. Sitting kind of crisscross. Hopefully your eye is drawn to, on the left side, you see the turbulent waters of Lake Superior. Very unforgiving. And on the right side, you see the start of the Portage Canal, which is still part of Lake Superior, but it's completely calm. If you sit out there long enough, it really plays with your mind, because you get the sound, the sight, the smell of the air, and it's a great place to reflect. So, what did I think about? I kind of reflected on my connections with others, and I personally took in the loss of my mother. I reflected on my life since January and everything that we had been through, the ups and downs. It was quite a year of transitions, to say the least. And I thought about what's next for us as a school district. Pretty deep thoughts. So what did I come up with? One, our core values. You know my really fancy diagram here, right? I made this one myself. Really captures in 5 words what I think that we want for our students, what we want for ourselves, what I want for my own kids coming through Clarkston schools. I want this feeling. I want our students to be healthy, safe, engaged, supported, and challenged. I love the way those words flow. And I think they really speak volumes of what we're about in Clarkston. We don't have a problem with our direction or what we're about or what we built. We have words and a spirit that really capture the essence of what is Clarkston. And I feel like in my role and our role as a collective team, I lost my partner in January that way. We did a lot of great things over 7 years. And I can't do it alone. To bring this feeling, I need about 1,000 of you to come along with me to be my partners. Because together we can kind of continue on that dream, okay? Continue on the essence of what has made Clarkston special. And I've kind of put it into a couple action statements, because these are words. This is a feeling. This is a sentiment of what we're about. But I really look into 4 different areas that I want to make sure that I just want to touch on, that we're going to keep at the forefront of our minds. And I don't consider them the initiative du jour or the next best thing. They're really something that we're going to make sure that our kids have as they move forward from us, because really we're life changers here in Clarkston as educators. And I think the 4 different areas are the foundational skills that we give students, because put simply, I don't need to drone on, but if you can't read, you're going to have a tough life. Anybody argue with that? That's a fact, Jack. Kids need to have those skills as they come up through our programs, all right? There's no substitute. If you're going to be able to think and communicate that thinking, you need to be able to read, write, and do math. And in Clarkston, thinking is a foundational skill. That is an area we're going to be deliberate and continue on working. We're also going to give a sense over the next several years of personalized learning. And we're going to continue on with that idea of learning that's project-based, hands-on, blended, flexible. Roots and service learning can be online, can be in school, out of school. We're not going to be shackled by our day, our building, the age chronologically of our students in some sort of magical line, or a standardized test score. That is not going to be Clarkston. The world is changing if you're paying attention, and we must change too to do service to our kids. The next area you guys are going to be very surprised is that whole child, whole person, and it pertains to everybody in this room. We need to continue to give attention to the mental and the physical health of our kids. When we know that 1 out of 4 of our students comes into our building suffering from some form of mental illness or challenge, we need to continue to work to take the stigma away from this, because it transcends into our community, and to our staff collectively, we need to take away the feeling that it's something to be ashamed about, right? Something to be put away and not talked about. We're educators, we're not psychologists or psychiatrists, but there's a place for us. And we can inform ourselves of what to do next, and we can help and support each other and our students with that mental health. We also need to look at the challenges of the way our kids are potentially hurting themselves directly, engaged in activities like vaping, which according to my kids is, pretty much everywhere around through our secondary buildings, and aspects of bullying that we need to take by the horns. And I even expand this into the idea that we're going to hear a little later today, which is on social justice. Our awareness of social justice issues. If you haven't noticed, Clarkston is not very diverse, at least on a face value. It's something that we need to instill and make sure that each other and our students are aware of as they go out into what I'll call the real world. It's important. And also, the dirty little secret of Clarkston is that, whether you knew it or not, we're one of the most economically diverse communities in the state of Michigan. I'll say it again. We're one of the most economically diverse. The disparity between rich and poor in Clarkston is amazing. Whether you knew it or not, it's a fact that we have one of the highest Medicaid recipient communities for part of our community, and right down the street we have one of the richest. All right? That's diversity that we need to acknowledge, be aware of, and be able to support. Because if you're on the bottom half of that, let me tell you, it's a tough go in Clarkston. And do you put a banner up there to say, hey, I'm poor or I'm struggling? Not around here, you don't. Right? You come in and you try to blend and just fit in. And I think as a staff and as a community, we need to engage and integrate and support one another that way. And finally, on a real positive one, is the opportunity for our students to find their passions. I can almost see Rod saying that in terms of engaging our kids. I've sat for, 20 some odd years. I don't know if I've been a couple years even longer than Daryl. And at DTE, you see the kids come across the stage, they go down the steps, and it's usually kind of a little bit haphazard because I watch a couple of them catch their gowns as they're about ready to trip and fall down 6 or 7 steps at that critical moment. I sit like the second set in up to this year. I was on stage this year, if you noticed. But as I watch the kids, in the last several years, it's been more personal. As I said, my son who just graduated, you get in those invariable conversations that say, hey, what are you doing after graduation? And I found way too many Clarkston kids. You know what they say to me? Well, I'm going to figure it out. Something's going to come up. I'm working on it. Got some opportunities in the wings. That's not good enough. When kids find their passions or engaged, we need to make sure as educators that we help guide them to find those avenues, those opportunities. So when they cross that stage and go down those steps, they have a purpose and know where they're going. It might sound like a simple thing. It's not. It's absolutely critical. They might change their mind 20 times, have 5, 10 different careers, right? But we need to make sure they're on their footing when they go to move on to that first one past us. And I think those are the areas that we need to make sure that we're focused on. And finally, remember that collectively all these fit into the Clarkston spirit because we are an organization of people. And since we're an organization of people, as Daryl said, and you're going to hear that theme, our focus has to be on relationships. They're messy. People are messy, dirty. Things are very difficult when you're dealing with people. And it's been estimated that in our lifetimes that we run across between 5,000 and 10,000 people. Mr. Cook, I read it on the internet, so it must be true. Thank you. But how many do we actually connect with? How many do we actually make personal connections to where we add that color, that beauty, that richness to our lives when it's not just people floating inside and outside of our lives? And I think this is the essence I want to capture. So yeah, I had to give some of that substance area, but when we talk about relationships, I want to tell you a little story. I like stories. They kind of make me wake up and engage in whatever people are talking. But I want you to draw out the elements I've talked about and see where the connection is moving forward. And I'll start by saying a good friend of mine says that butterflies are visits and signs from those who have passed. And I can tell you this summer, I saw a lot of butterflies. Way too many to just be random. And I think that having experienced a loss, it's a universal human experience where strength and hope come from those relationships. And whether it's a loss that you have, my heart goes out to those of you who lost family or family struggling with illness. you see when the chips are down and you're in the middle of struggle, the difference really is relationships. And a little story, a little bit more personal read on to me is that as I look back on the day that my mom passed, and she was one of those tough old Italian ladies, when she was going to go, she said today's going to be it. She had her family around her. It's amazing because I've never had anybody, an immediate family person, pass away before. And if you guys have been in, somebody who's been struggling with their health, we were at that phase where mom was in the hospital bed in the living room. You guys been in that spot with hospice? And on that final day, she had just a couple words for me and my brothers. And she said, like as throughout the life that I hope I instilled in you, to follow your heart and to make sure you know that you put your hope and emphasis on people, because in the end, that's all that really matters. Okay? At the end, looking back from a life well lived, it's relationships that really connect. But she also said, because this is not just one of those real sad moments as well, my mom was quite a firecracker. She added with her sentence, don't forget, life is hard, then you die. Followed with, I told you so. And in that shock, she smiled. And this is coming from a woman when she grew up in Italy without indoor plumbing. Their major activities with her sisters were combing through old World War II battlefields around her house. And they'd pick up old shell fragments, things like unexploded mines, to sell as scrap metal. So think about it, kids finding unexploded mines. But they were duds. She said they weren't actually working. And I think even in that moment, this weekend of kind of hollering at my kids for riding their bikes without their helmets in the cul-de-sac, kind of one of those things where it's like digging up landmines, no bike, no helmet. They were different times. But World War II was going on there after that. So then finally, we kind of held her hand, and she told us that she loved us, and I could feel her, and I wanted to capture to make sure I did not let this moment slip away, that I could see her actually drift away and forever gone, And at that moment, I had a profound sense of loss and sadness. And that day was powerful enough, but I also found a moment of humanity, humor, and random connection that I want to share because I think it makes a difference in what we all do collectively as educators. So as I looked up, as you can imagine this scene, teary-eyed from my final farewell, I was snapped back to the reality. You've ever been in that situation where you're kind of caught and you feel like you can't really hear or see the moment, and then something snap, and you're back to reality. In this case, I looked up, and bam, who might be standing there but Daryl, the pizza guy. Very strange, right? And for those in the audience, this is not really Daryl. This is a clip art from the internet as well, but I thought it kind of illustrated my story. So why do I share Daryl? Seeming kind of random at the moment. Well, he was quietly sitting at the back of our family gathering around Mom. Immediately rose to mind, who are you? I was feeling a little defensive. Why are you in my parents' living room? And most importantly, who ordered pizza? Which quickly my brother chimed in, I was hungry. I didn't know how long these things last. Thank you, Michael. Wherever you're at, I hope you can hear and feel my continued amazement at your picking the right words at the right time. My first instinct was kind of like, again, protective of my family. How do I get this guy out of my parents' living room? Why is he there, right? So I start walking Daryl towards the door. And we pass through the niceties after I ask him who he is. He's delivering pizza. So we get to my parents' front door. He stops me. I'm ready to kind of push him out into the street. Friendly, gently. Daryl stops me, and he'll say, he looked into my eyes, and he said something I'll never forget. And I'm sharing as I was sitting on that pier that I felt the need to share with you this morning. He had one of the most eloquent and heartfelt things. He looked and said, dude, that was so intense, but beautiful. It was real. It stunned me. So as I kind of stood there, Daryl kind of took the initiative, and he had two questions for me. One of them Where do you want the pizza? Because we were at the front door and he had a stack of pizzas. And the second question was, can I give you a hug? I bear hugged Daryl. That little guy, I had him, he had the big Italian. I think I was going to squeeze the life out of him. But why? Why was this important? Reflecting later. Why did it change me? Why am I sharing it this morning? Because I felt like the moment showed me the power and the humanity that is possible in all of us. The power to connect in the moment into someone else's life at a critical time and engage. Daryl, like most Ferris State University students, probably working summer jobs, probably didn't know what he was in for that day. And I can only imagine what he said when he got back to the pizza shop. He didn't want to take money, but I gave him a $100 tip, and I think he was good as he walked off. But I'm sure he went back and was like, guys, you're not going to believe this story. And as I look back, I think Daryl, like many of us, could have handled that situation in many different ways, right? Maybe my instinct would have been to run away. I think I would have walked in there, saw what was going on, and went, whoop, I need to go. Daryl didn't. Daryl sat down. And I'd have you ask yourself, how many times have you been in someone else's moment? Think about it, right? Culture thinking here. Think about it in your own mind right now. When have you been in somebody else's moment? I'd probably say across our school year, to varying degrees, it's probably not always a death of an immediate family member, but it probably happens 1,000 times a day. And I'd venture to say that, we see it every school, every level, every age group of kids, and with each other within staff. And I'd like to say that I've always, when I've been in these situations, reached out. That hasn't been the case. I've failed people. I pretended not to notice. I looked the other way. I didn't engage. And that made me really think this summer. And you remember the divided water? My little video? Hasn't been that long. I want you to think, what is your power to connect? To be that breakwater and lighthouse for others. The symbolism just smacked me right in the face as I was sitting out there. What is our collective power when you look at this entire auditorium, or you look at every school in the district, and the 7,500 students we touch every day, and 1,000 people that work here? What is our power to engage in those moments? That's where I believe that you can make a difference, that we all make a difference if we decide to reach out into someone else's moment. Daryl did. And I'd say to you all, what you do matters. This is coming from my toes, through my heart, and all the way out through my brain. What you do matters. And it did for me that day. And maybe it takes those moments for us all to remember the power that we have as teachers and people to connect and be there for one another. Because as teachers, counselors, social workers, administrators, secretaries, whether you work in a cafeteria or drive a bus, you can be that person's lighthouse towards hope and a breakwater against despair. I came up with that on that pier, and that just, boom, hit me. That's it. It matters. So I encourage you all to engage in those moments this year. It's not easy. You have to pay attention, and you have to act. But it will mean the world to someone else, especially a child. Appreciated at the time or not. Because I'll tell you, sometimes when you reach out, you get your hand smacked. Right? People aren't always nice in their moments. It doesn't matter. Be there anyways. Look how defensive I initially was. This has affected my own view of the world moving forward, and I hope in my last breath to be able to look back now and think that I've been that bridge and lighthouse. And I want you to be able to have that moment too. So we can do this for our kids. We can do it for each other. And I encourage you to make those connections, those relationships, as Daryl and I and the rest of the district are going to tout, and President Egan and our board, everybody in our organization. It will make a difference one moment, one person at a time. So I ask, do you believe that you can make a difference? Do you believe you can have a life-changing impact? It's a question. Come on, Lack, let's hear it. Yes. I say yes, and I believe in you. I believe in all of you. I think we can make a better school district, a better community that way. So I'll say, let's go. Everything that we built for the last 7 years lives on with you, us, making it happen and moving it forward. Okay? Remember that. There's nobody going to save us. We can do it as long as we work together, top to bottom, all right? It means all the world as you go to your classrooms and meet those kids on their first day. So when I say I believe in you, this is where I got my orchestra. I'm going to jam, give the cue, and this is how I heard this in my head. Let's see if it looks as good in real life. Hit it. Sing if you know the words. Guys, stand up. Yeah. And hey, that would be great enough, but Mr. Lucido has one more little giveaway.
So we are raffling off 4 paid days off this year to be used. Yeah, you'll be able to use these days without restriction. So days next to a break are okay, or whatever restrictions your employment type has. So we're going to take a break here for just a minute, and then we're going to come back with the next part of our program. But the way we're going to raffle these off is we have stuck tickets to the bottom of your seat. So check your seat to see if you were one of our winners. Full time. Okay. I'm gonna make him break. Okay, Okay, who's our winners? All right. And Anthony, brand new. Okay. Okay, if you won, I'd like you to come up during the break so I can record your information and get those days added to your bank, okay? Okay. Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute break.
Good morning, Clarkston. All right, welcome back. So this portion of our morning, we're going to talk about social justice. And you have a handout that actually there is a social justice definition right in the middle. For us, this is what we're using in our district for a definition for social justice. Social justice is evident when an institution or a society tries to expand equal opportunities and outcomes for all members of society, challenges inequities and discrimination, and promotes participation of all people. So about 3 years ago, we had a cohort of about 10 to 12 people go in to learn with Dr. J. Marks for over 4 days of learning to understand some issues around social justice and understand our own perspectives and our own biases with that, and how do we grow the conversation to understand different perspectives with that. As we worked in that and as a cohort and looked at data, because we also did some surveys, we were recognizing too then that our curriculum really didn't address many issues with social justice. And so we said, all right, let's have a second cohort of people have some of this learning, but who are coming from our curriculum base. So Nancy Mahoney, along with some of our coordinators, were able to engage in some more learning as a cohort with Dr. J. Marks as well. And as we're looking at those things, we're recognizing, okay, let's look at some of the materials that we're using with our students and what are they reading. And so some changes have already been started to have been made in our language arts department. I have a bunch of books that Phyllis Ness has bought for our elementaries to engage in some dialogue just as a starting point. And we're going to continue to have this learning and grow in our district. Nancy Mahoney has also had Jay work with all of our subject area coordinators, our literacy coaches, and our ITs to help grow this conversation. We then had, about a year and a half ago, Jay worked with about 15 of our high school students and had a fishbowl conversation with them around race. We tend to understand that our students are saying, we don't know how to talk about race, and we don't know how to talk about sexual orientation. And so how do we have that conversation, and how do we grow that? And so we got a good information from those students about what they were feeling, what are some of the things that they're hearing in school. And then last April, a year and a half ago, we brought our high school teachers together to watch that fishbowl and have some dialogue. And one of the things that came out of it was, we really need more learning and understanding. How do we do this, and how can we grow together with that? And so it was our plan. This was what we were going to do in January, so we're not waiting a year and a half later to finally bring this to everybody. This was part of our plan to think about it, but we just had to have our timetable pushed back a little bit. And so how can we have a common understanding, a common touch point to start, and then to continue this dialogue throughout the year? We have facilitators, as I said, with the cohorts. Just about every single building has at least one person. And not as experts, we're not experts, but really as facilitators who are passionate about this work, and how can we come together and just start the conversation and really work together with this. And so today, we are here together for that touch point, and what we're going to use are our norms. We have some norms at the top of this sheet as well that we're just going to ask you to engage in this dialogue, be open listeners, active listeners, be open-minded, sensitive to other perspectives, because we recognize that we all come with different perspectives and life experiences, and so how can we honor that? And just accept that we might have discomfort as we're talking, and how can we grow through that? So I have the honor to introduce Dr. Jay Marks, who is a widely respected educator who has been in education since 1991, and he began his career as a special education teacher at Northern High School and with the Detroit Public School System. So during his career, he served as a classroom teacher for 17 years with both Detroit and Southfield Public Schools, as well as an educational consultant on the national level. Currently, Dr. Marks is a diversity and equity consultant with Oakland Schools, here, our ISD here in Oakland County, where he serves and supports the professional development needs of 28 districts within Oakland County. He's highly sought after for his work in the areas of social justice, cultural competence, courageous conversations about race, culturally responsive teaching, educating African American males, closing the achievement gap, student engagement, differentiated instruction, and urban education. In addition to his professional work in the field of education, he has been mentoring youth since 1989 and has started several mentoring programs in the metropolitan Detroit area as a result of his experience. His academic credentials include a bachelor's degree from Western Michigan University, a master's degree from U of D, Mercy, and an Ed Specialist Certificate and a PhD in Curriculum and Instruction, both from Wayne State. As a graduate student, Dr. Marks studied abroad at Oxford University in Oxford, England, as a student in the British Studies program. Dr. Marks is an active member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated and the proud father of two beautiful daughters, Amari, who is 15, and Jalea, who is 12. We are honored to have you, Dr. Jay Marks.
Hello, hello? Oh, there we are. Hello. Good morning, how are you? Man, I am in Clarkston, Michigan. What's up with that? I have made it. I have arrived. I'm in Clarkston. It's good to see you all. What an amazing morning it has been with the beautiful children, talented children and students you have here. Sean, your words were just amazing, brother. You could have just gone on, and that was just, you could have gone on and on. And I would have been just fine with that. Like, brother, you just go. You just go. I want to thank Sean, Stacy, your administrative team, your Board of Education, and you for having me and inviting me into your community this morning to talk about this very important topic for all of us as it relates to social justice and how we use social justice to achieve equity and peace in our lives, in our professional worlds, in our schools, and in our communities. Okay? I'm going to start off with something I wrote some years ago, and it's called What If? And I thought about some of the inequities and injustices that I find in our society. And I was just compelled to put it in words to be able to articulate it for myself, what's before us. What are some of our present day challenges? Some of the things I'm going to say hopefully will be things that spark your attention, spark your interest. I'm going to invite you to engage with an open mind, and I'm going to invite you to allow yourself to be challenged by some of the things that I may say this morning, okay? And then most importantly, think about how what we talk about this morning connects to your professional practice, as well as your personal lives, right? Because this work is personal. But how can this connect? How will this connect to your personal practice over this school year, okay? I try not to make any assumptions. I'm human, but I try not to make any assumptions. One assumption I try not to make is that folk aren't already on this journey, right? But I also don't make the assumption that folk are on this journey, right? So there's an invitation for us all to get on this journey together and find whatever entry point we can, okay? This is called What If. Let me ask you to just reflect on this and use this as a catalyst for the rest of what we talk about this morning. What if? What if students didn't segregate themselves by race and ethnicity in the cafeteria, hallways, parking lots, and other open spaces in our schools? What if? What if students weren't bullied by their peers because of their differences, regardless of whether those differences were real or perceived? What if? What if we had the courage to stand up and speak out against bullies instead of being a bystander to someone else's pain and oppression? What if? What if our Asian students were not stereotyped as the model minority and that we expect them all to perform with excellence in our math and science classes, but as if they had nothing meaningful to contribute to the arts, social sciences, and other forms of study? What if our poor students had as much access and opportunity as their non-economically disadvantaged peers? What if? What if our students who identify themselves as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and or questioning could live in a society that was welcoming, accepting, and inclusive of difference, instead of one that sometimes marginalizes, condemns, and isolates them? What if our racially and ethnically diverse students could feel free to express their cultural values instead of having to assimilate to the values of the dominant culture? Are we a melting pot or a salad bowl? Or maybe even a mosaic for our artists out there in the audience? But what are we? What if? What if African American males could freely walk the streets in their communities, and any community for that matter, without the threat and fear of being gunned down, in many instances by the very people who are supposed to serve and protect them? Rest in peace, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Eric Gardner, Jordan Davis, and so many others senselessly and unjustly killed. What if? What if women and girls in our society benefited from equity, which provided them with as much access and opportunity as afforded to men and boys, particularly as it relates to educational tracking, employment, and income? What if? What if those of us who benefit from privilege based on race, gender, socioeconomic status, education, and other social factors used our privilege to eliminate practices and eradicating privilege in pursuit of equity? I like this one. What if social justice and cultural competence was just as important as the Common Core and standardized tests as relates to professional learning for educators and the schooling experiences of children? That is true here in Clarkston. What if we all realized that we are the dream that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was referring to, and that we need to wake up, stop dreaming, and begin to live out his dream? What if we recognize, in the words of Dr. King, that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere? Clarkston, I just asked you, what if all these were true? What if? So as we think about some of those things, kind of want to unpack social justice, and I'm going to talk to you about three things as it relates to how we as educators can become allies for social justice, equity, and peace. Sometimes when I speak in audiences such as this, I kind of get lost in the conversation. So I need you all to make sure I don't fall off the stage, okay? Somebody's gonna have to catch me, right? So Stacy started us with a definition of social justice. And in Oakland County, this is the definition we use. You can go to Google, you can go to another workshop, you can go to another community, you can talk to another colleague, they may have another definition for social justice. And I understand that and I get that. But in Oakland County, the social justice project that we facilitate and that we coordinate, we use this definition so that we have common language and common understanding about our goals and our outcomes. So again, is when an institution such as a school or district or a society that tries to expand equal opportunities and outcomes for all members of society that challenges inequities and discrimination, but promotes participation for all of its people. And that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot to think about. It's a lot to consider. I have a graphic illustration that may be helpful for some of us. Sorry, we're used to equality, right? We know equality is giving everyone the same. But equality can create inequities because we all don't need the same. All of your students don't need the same. All of our families don't need the same. So we look at equity is how do we put in supports to give people what they need, right? Which is the middle picture. But then this is our work, that very last column, liberation. How do we get to freedom? Social justice provides a venue for doing that. That is the work. How do we eradicate barriers such as fences so that we don't have to provide equity, we don't have to consider it because the playing field is available. Everyone has access to it. That's the access we were talking about earlier, right? There are no barriers. Now they can just freely get out and engage in the game as players or spectators, right? And that's our work as allies for social justice. When we talk about social justice, there's some key concepts, and these are things that we hold on to and that we hold true for ourselves. Because what's also important that we have common language with our definition is also important is that we have a common understanding of what fits in social justice for us and what does not. Because there are some things that don't fit. Like hatred does not fit. Bigotry does not fit. Oppression does not fit. Marginalization of any kind does not fit. Discrimination of any kind does not fit. So we want to talk, we stand for something, and I want to share these core concepts with you. One, students have a right to an excellent education, all of our students. Doesn't matter where they went to school last year, doesn't matter what their academic performance was last year, doesn't matter who their parents are, right? Doesn't matter where they're people from, doesn't matter the academic readiness, they all deserve that and have a right to it. Students should have equal opportunities and equal outcomes. We talked about that. Segregation is unjust, although that we know that sometimes people self-segregate based on affinity. But when we intentionally do that, that is an unjust practice. Society will be stronger when we have equity, when we have peace, right? And when we have justice. Diversity in the classroom equals excellent education. And I'm talking about all ways of being different, family, all ways of being different, right? I look in this audience and I see what appears from my perception homogeny in one area, but I see huge amounts of diversity. So racially, this is my perception. I can only talk about what I see until I talk to you and get to know you and where you're from and your ethnicity and how you identify what I know more. But based on what I see for the majority racially homogenous group. But that may be the only thing outside of being Clarkston that we have in common. I also see huge amounts of diversity, right? And so we need to really think about and articulate how do we define diversity. Racial diversity is one element of diversity. It's an important element of diversity, but it's one area. We also have diversity in experiences, beliefs, perspectives, attitudes, right? Bless you. Gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic class, language, religion, all different ways of being different. Educational curricula should be accurate, complete, and represent all students. Stacy talked about that. How do we have a balanced curriculum, an accurate curriculum, right? That represents all of our children, all of our students, all of our families in non-stereotypical ways. And not just captions in the margins, but integrated fully as part of the fabric of what we call this American history. This is all of our history. Doesn't belong to one group, doesn't belong to two groups, doesn't belong to the dominant group. It's all of ours. We all created it, right? Young people should have a voice in the educational decisions that affect them. I believe this, and this may be highly philosophical for some, but I believe this vehemently, and I learned this in my 17 years of teaching. I believe that if we ask students how to teach them, they will tell us and then give us permission to do so. I believe we have students sitting in our classroom who are yet to learn because they feel like they've yet to be extended an invitation to learn, to be taught, right? I'm a consultant. I love, people who work with me know I love the work I do. I feel greatly, richly blessed to do the work I do, particularly working with great, wonderful colleagues such as you. I love what I do. But some of the answers to the questions I get are sitting right in front of you every day. It's our babies, it's our students, our clients. Step one, self-awareness. Self-awareness is important to me because I believe, and again, this may be a J. Marks thing, I believe you teach who you are. All parts of who you are come up and come out when you teach. When you show up and do that amazing work that you do as educators, whether you're a classroom teacher, social worker, psychologist, counselor, administrator, paraprofessional, support staff, whatever role you play, that amazing work you do, you bring all of you into it. I know there's a separation between church and state. We're not supposed to indoctrinate students with religion or spirituality. But if you're a Christian, if you're Jewish, if you're Hindu, if you're Muslim, if you're atheist, some of those things show up with you because it's a part of who you are. It's like, I'm a Christian. And you talk to me long enough, you're going to know that. Because I'm going to say and do things that will reveal that. I can't hide it. Now, I can't indoctrinate anybody with it, but I can't hide it, nor should I, and nor should you. But you have to know who you are so you know how you're showing up for our students because they see and hear everything, right? So I believe if you teach who you are, you have to know who you are. You got to spend some time there first, right? Before becoming an ally for someone else. So one, who are you? In terms of your own racial identity, ethnic identity, language identity, sexual orientation identity. Who are your people? Where are your people from? What is your background? What is your neighborhood? Who are you? What are your perspectives, experiences, and beliefs and values? What's important to you? But also, what biases do you possess? Do you have stereotypes that you have about people who are different than you are? Right? I believe that we all have biases and stereotypes. Research shows us that. Matter of fact, the research shows us as adolescents, as toddlers, human beings begin to categorize things between 18 and 24 months. Those of you who are babies, you already know that. You're like, yep, amen. They start categorizing things. We categorize colors, shapes, sizes, food, toys, people. Between the ages of 3 to 5, human beings begin to develop dispositions about those same things they start categorizing as toddlers. Toys, shapes, sizes, colors, food, people. 3 to 5 years old. By 9 years old, many to most of us have developed a fixed mindset, a fixed disposition about those same things we started categorizing between 8 to 24 months and started developing dispositions towards between 3 to 5 years old. Shapes, sizes, color, food, toys, people, right? So the thing is, the question becomes not do we have biases? For me, the question becomes what are they? And that's a personal, reflective conversation. I tell people this all the time, and I'm transparent with it to a degree. I have biases. I stereotype people. They say, well, Jay, you do this work. Yes, I do this work. I do it a lot, and I'm passionate about it. I believe in it. But I'm also on this journey with you. I'm not above you. I'm on this journey with you. I'm working on Jay. So the thing is, I know what my biases are. I know what stereotypes I possess. And you all are looking at me like, ooh, Jay, tell us what they are. Ooh, tell us what they are, Jay. Well, I'm not going to do that, right? Because my biases, no offense, aren't any of your business, right? Because what would you do with them anyway? If I told you my stereotypes and my biases, what would you do with them? Probably just judge me because of them, right? I know what mine are. The question is, family, do you know what yours are? And are you real about that and real with yourself? And it's not no one's business that you tell them inform yourself so you can start working on them, counteracting them when they show up. Because that's what I do. When I walk into spaces, interact with people whom have an identity where I may have a bias towards, and I hear that metacognitive conversation going on in my head between my ears, I say, whoa, Jay, what you doing, man? Slow down, dog. Where you going with this? You haven't even met these people yet. This person hasn't even spoken to you yet. And you having this conversation about you already telling their story. And you haven't even talked to them yet. What's up with that, man? Stop, that's not cool. All that happens in a matter of a few seconds. Then I shut that down, which frees me and enables me to enter into a relationship, a meaningful relationship, with people who I may have a bias or disposition about or a stereotype about. Sean talked about how important relationships are, and they're critical. But I believe before we enter into a meaningful relationship with anyone, particularly those who we have a bias or stereotype about, we have to reconcile that bias or stereotype. Otherwise, we'll be faking it, trying to make it, pretending as if we don't have these biases. How are you privileged? Do you have privileges in your life in terms of any of your identities? Any unearned advantages? And privilege, family, doesn't mean that you didn't work hard, that you don't experience hardships. We know you work hard. We know you've earned your degrees, you've earned your grades, you've earned your status. We know that, right? And we know that all of us, regardless of any privilege that we have, would experience hardship. It just comes with life. You know, as Sean's mother told us, right? It comes with life. Right? You're going to experience some hardships. But are there areas in your life where you have unearned advantage? I do. I have areas in my life. One, I'm a Christian. That gives me some unearned advantage. I did a lot of traveling this summer. Stayed in a few hotels. And each of those hotels I stayed in, I was able to open up the drawer to the nightstand. And what did I find in that drawer? A Bible. Not the Holy Quran, not a Torah, but my book, the Bible. That's privilege. I also get about 2 weeks off during my holiday in December, and so do you, whether you're a Christian or not. You get it off. That's privilege. And I appreciate that, but it also makes me wonder how people who are Jewish, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindu, atheists are marginalized by that. Right? Because do they get their holidays off and recognized like that? Right? So it makes me wonder about that. I'm also middle class. Now I'm an educator, don't get it twisted. You all know about what I made, you didn't guess. Let's not get it twisted. And I'm only middle class twice a month. Right? And that's on those payday Fridays, and it's only at the beginning of the day. Right? Amen, right? And I always look to see, ooh, I get my check, ooh, look at that right there. Because I know by 3:30 that same afternoon, I'm working class poor again. It's gone. It's gone. But I know that my middle class status has afforded me some privileges. One privilege is I'm able to live in a diverse community. And I was able to live in this community because I could afford to live in it. In this diverse community are a number of grocery stores, number of them, that have fresh fruits and vegetables and meats on a daily basis. And I can go to those grocery stores, I can buy me some groceries, I can swipe my card and not hope and pray that the money is there. I minimally know that that money is there. I can't tell you how much a loaf of bread costs, a pack of cheese, or a gallon of milk, or a jar of juice. I can't tell you how much those things cost, because minimally when I go to the store to buy those things, I swipe my card and I know the money is there. I wonder how many of our families, and maybe even some of us in the audience, can tell you how much a loaf of bread costs, pack of meat, gallon of milk, price of gas on a daily basis, because we need that information for our survival, right? So I know that I recognize it's a privilege that I have, right? So the question becomes, Jay, what did you do with this privilege? I'll talk about that in a moment. Then we think about how are you marginalized? What areas in your life have you been discriminated against? Have you been stereotyped? Have you been oppressed? Right? And I'm sure for many of us, not most of us, we can probably think about some experiences and times in our life where that has happened. For me, I could tell you as an African-American male, as a black man in this country, I continue to receive racial oppression, discrimination. As a middle class, relatively educated Christian, My privileged identities does not get me out of my marginalization. So I could tell you what that experience is like and tell you stories about that as a black man in this country. Right? That's my story. Think about your story and where this works for you. Okay? I want to show this video, and I'm going to ask you to look for identities. Do you identify with any of these experiences in this video? I think this video may connect with many, if not all of us in some way. Find how you connect with it. Okay? I'm going to ask Amy and Mary Ellen to hit it for me. Did you connect with anything? Did you see yourself? Inclusion starts with I. It starts with you. Who are you? Self-awareness, okay? A people without knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. Who are you? It's Marcus Garvey. Pretend like we did a turn and talk. Just pretend we didn't do it, all right? We pretend like we did. A little bit behind times. We pretend like we did it. Great conversation, wonderful, amazing comments, amazing. Let's talk more about it later. Step 2, awareness and acceptance of differences. That's our second step, right? Examine our attitudes and beliefs about difference. When you think about difference, what do you think about? What turns up for you? Do you subscribe to the notion of sameness, that we're all the same? Right? And that notion of sameness is dangerous, colleagues. And I know that we mean well often when we use that language, particularly with our learners. Yes, we are all human beings. We have similar traits and qualities, bless you, but we're also very different. Because when we use language like sameness, it makes me wonder how students who know that they are different feel marginalized in those moments. Like when we say we're the same, the student who's the only student in the class in a wheelchair, I wonder how they feel. When you say we're all the same, if you have the only Muslim child in the classroom with a hijab, I wonder how they feel. When you say we're all the same, when you have a young person in your classroom who looks physically like a boy, but in their head and heart know that they are a girl, do they feel like they're the same? So that language of sameness is dangerous, right? Because we're similar. Yes, we're human beings, but we're diverse, we're different. We need to lift that up and celebrate that and acknowledge it, right? And accept it, right? And you can't celebrate what you don't see. You can't celebrate what we won't acknowledge. And you certainly can't celebrate what you don't accept, right? Do you subscribe to the notion of colorblindness? I don't see race. And again, I know that some people were raised with that, to believe that. To be colorblind, don't see race, so as not to offend, and so that you can see more of a person than their race. But I want you to understand, family, that could be highly offensive to some people, particularly those who their racial identity is a huge part of their identity, right? And two, it's not even humanly possible to be colorblind. It's one of the first physical characteristics we know. We know someone's race, their gender, their age, their body type and structure, and other things. I don't want you to ignore this. I hope as you look at me speak, I hope you're recognizing that what stands before you is a black man, is an African American. I want you to see that. My tie is green though. It's kind of cool though too. I want you to see this cool green tie. But see this, recognize this, respect it, right? And I'll do the same for you. So I want you to see this. What I don't want you to do is judge me because of it, have stereotypes of it because of it, discriminate against me because of it, limit my access and opportunities because of it, judge me because of it. That's what I don't want, and you don't want that either, okay? So it's okay to, we want you to recognize our differences so we can lift them up and celebrate them. Develop an awareness of difference, and that just really talks about who's in your friendship group, who comes to your house for dinner, whose homes do you go to for dinner, what communities do you spend time in professionally and socially, right? Who do your children play with? Who are the professionals that you see? What are their identities? Right? Do you build relationships? Again, Sean talked about building relationships. Do you build relationships with people who are different than you? People who look different, who love different, who pray different, who think differently? Or are all of our friends homogenous and the same? One thing I love about living in the Metro Detroit area is that there are huge amounts of diversity here. And if we're interested and if we have the will, we can go to these communities and spend time in these communities and engage with people in these communities. One thing I feel to be true, and I try not to overgeneralize, but I feel to be true, that as Americans, we do a lot of traveling. And when we travel to another country, oftentimes, where do we spend our time? We spend our time engaged in the culture of the country that we're visiting, right? You go to Italy, you're spending time with the Italians. You go into Paris, you're spending time with the French. You're in Ghana, you're spending time with the Ghanaians. Then we come here and we segregate ourselves. That same diversity that we benefit from when we travel abroad, we have here, if we're intentional about it. Sorry? And then lastly, appreciate differences as difference. Roberto Chenet calls it difference as difference, right? We just have differences, and that's okay. See, I don't believe that difference is the problem in our country, family. I believe it is our dispositions towards certain differences that create problems. Just like I don't believe that race is the problem in our country. I really don't. I believe racism is the problem in our country. And that's a different issue. but one that's important to all of us, regardless of your racial identity, right? Because our history in this country is all of our history. None of us created it, and prayerfully, none of us are perpetuating the negative aspects of our history in this country. But we all inherited it, which to me gives us all a huge sense of obligation and responsibility to do something about it, to eradicate it. I have one more video. You're going to appreciate this one. It's called Love Has No Labels. Mary Ellen, Amy, hit it.
So he can submit all the needed fizzy cola bottle jelly beans to the...
That wasn't it.
Dummy.
Yeah, there we go. All right. There we go.
Yeah. Let me tell you, crazy stuff happens when you start replying to scam emails. It's really difficult, and I highly recommend we do. I don't think what I'm doing is mean, right? You know, there are a lot of people out there who do mean.
Yeah, thank you. There's something else going on. Something is messing with my video. There's another video that hijacked our video. We'll get there. There we go. Yeah, that may help. One thing about education, I'll tell you to be true. One thing that I love about it, you have to be flexible, right? Things happen. Is an imperfect practice. Should I keep going? Oh, okay. Okay. Here we go.
My heart doesn't see race.
Love has no age limit.
That's my best friend.
We are neighbors and best friends.
We all have different religions, but we have universal love as well.
I love my sister.
Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Thank you, Marianne and Amen. No, you guys are doing an amazing job. Thank you. Thank you. And that applause for you all. So thank you. I don't know about you all, but I get emotional every time I see that, because it just reminds me of what's possible and who we are, who we really are at our core. And so of all the differences we saw up there, love has no labels. It's just about love. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hatred. Only love can do that. Can we love each other more? Can we love each other in spite of, regardless of any differences that we have and how we may feel about those differences? Can love be at the center and core of who we are? I'm going to take a couple of minutes. We had a great turn and talk. Wonderful comments. Thank you for sharing that. Insightful. I'm going to get back with you later on that so I can get more information from you. Amazing. Last one, step 3, becoming an ally. And you're going to do some of this work, I believe, in your breakout sessions this morning. And this will be some work I know that you will be committing to for this year. But how to become an ally for social justice? Being an ally means recognizing oppression broadly and standing in solidarity anywhere with anyone who experiences oppression, whether or not the ally, you, also belongs to that targeted group. And what that simply means is, do you have to be one of to stand with? Do you have to be a woman to stand up for women's rights? Do you have to be impoverished to stand up and for the poor? Do you have to have a disability or a handicap to stand up with the disabled? Do you have to be elderly to stand up with our senior and stand up for what's right for our senior citizens? Do you have to be a member of the LGBT community to stand up for equal rights for those families and our brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ community? Do you have to be a person of color to stand up against racism and stand for racial equity? The answer is no, we don't. We don't have to be one of to stand with, right? So the question will be, who will you stand with? For me, I'm standing with anyone. I'm standing with anyone who expresses or experiences oppression, anyone who's marginalized, anyone who's discriminated against, anyone who's treated with stereotypes, right? Because I know I can stand with you. And sometimes in some of my privileged identities allows me to stand with you, right? Being a middle class, heterosexual, Christian in this country, male, gives me some privilege. Those are just some more of my privileged identities. I can use those privileged identities to stand with my brothers and sisters who are marginalized because of those identities. So lastly, don't be a bystander to injustice anywhere, anytime. Stand up, say something every time. Find your place in the fight for social justice. What issues around inequities and social justice are you most passionate about and are you concerned about? Even when we think about our environment and environmental issues, are those your concerns? What are your passions when it comes to social justice so that you can get in the fight? Take action and do something. But take action. And that's the thing I love about social justice. They're not just words. It's not just philosophies. It implies that we're going to do something about my passion. I'm going to do something with my passion. I'm going to use my privileges to eradicate injustices that are based on those privileges. I'm going to do something, right? Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Margaret Mead says, indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And we have plenty of examples in our modern and contemporary history. Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, Malala, Tarana Burks. You know who Tarana Burks is? founder of the Me Too movement, right? Cesar Chavez, Harriet Tubman, we can go on. And some of you, it just takes one person. Would that one person be you? Wonderful conversation. I loved it. Yes, I'm going to do the same thing you're doing, Sean. Absolutely. That was our turn to talk moment. So here's the question as I close. What will you do in pursuit of becoming an ally for social justice, equity, and peace? And that finger is pointed at each and every one of you, including myself. Because I tell people all the time, 2 things I've learned to be true about this work and my role in this work as I facilitate and lead this work is that 1, I don't know enough. I don't know enough. And some of you are thinking, well, Sean and Stacy, you all should brought somebody in here who know a little bit more. You don't know enough. But I don't. The second thing I've learned is that I never will. But that keeps me humble and grounded. But what I do have, although I don't know enough and I never will, what I do have is the will to get to know what I need to know about the people I'm called to serve. And if I'm working in Clarkston and serving this community, I need to know about you and who you are and what you need from me so I can meet you there so that we can get to this place that we desire together. Together. Okay? Wonderful video. So we're not going to show that video. We're going to move forward. I'm going to get everyone out. It was just a video, a TED Talk. It's about a 30-day challenge. You can check it out by a brother named Matt Kurtz. But what Matt does is go through a 30-day challenge, and he talks about how important 30-day challenges are when we want to make change in our lives. So we commit to something, small or large, for 30 days and see what happens. So we watched the video. It was an amazing video. Give a round of applause for the video. Yes. Amazing video. And so what I'm going to ask you to do today, and this is a commitment that I'm going to ask that you do for one another and for yourself. I'm going to ask that you, before you leave today, maybe if it's this space right here or leave this building, I'm going to ask that you find a person, someone new, someone who you don't know. Exchange contact information. That could be your email address, your social media page or something, your Facebook or your cell number, whatever. I want you all to, within about a week or so, I want you to contact each other. And I want you to share your commitment for being an ally for social justice. What will you do? You need a little time to think about it. So take 7 days. Within 7 days, I want you to connect with your partner and say, this is what I'm going to commit to doing for the first 30 days of school. At the end of the first 30 days of school, I'm going to ask that you check back in with your partner to see how it went. But matter of fact, before that 30 days, 2 weeks in, check with them to see how they're doing. They may have forgotten. They may need your support because you're going to be their critical friend. Okay? That's how we turn these moments into movements. This can't just be a moment where we come together and we talk about social justice in the auditorium and we go back to our classrooms and our schools and do breakout sessions. These need to be movements where they show up in our actions. And so in closing, I'm going to leave you with a few words. Desmond Tutu says all of humanity is dependent on recognizing the humanity in others. My challenge for me, and this has been my challenge for the last year or so, my challenge is always to connect my humanity with yours, to find people who are different than me, and connect my humanity with theirs, because that's what we have in common for sure, is a humanity. And when I find your humanity, and you find mine, it gives us a place where we can start and we can work together, and we can do some things together. But it's recognizing that. And do we have the will to do that? When I look in your eyes, I'm looking for your humanity. And when you look in my eyes, I hope you're looking for the same. And I'll close with this. One of my favorite quotes, or memes. Some of you have seen this before. A father says to a son, "Son, be careful where you walk." And the son replies, "Dad, you're the one who needs to be careful. Remember, I'm following in your footsteps." Clarkston, our students are watching. Our parents are watching. They need us. They depend on us. And we need each other. They need each other. Asante Sana, thank you very much for having me this morning. I wish you all peace and blessings for an amazing school year. Thank you. Right back at you. Right back at you.
Wow, what a blessing we had this morning to come together. First to hear from Sean and his passion about relationships, and then to hear from Jay as well. Thank you for everything. Appreciate you. Last August, we talked about meeting our students human to human. And you heard in Sean and then in Jay's talk, this is our opportunity to meet our kids human to human, meet one another human to human. And so what we're going to do is we're going to break out into classrooms to continue the conversation. Our cohorts from our social justice will be leading that facilitation and working with you. You have a label on your packet that indicates what room number to go to so that we could break things up. When Jay is challenging us to make a commitment to connect with someone different, you should have an opportunity to meet with somebody in that room that you don't know very well to make that commitment with one another. Please, if you have room 229 as your label, 229, raise your hand. You're actually going to room 219, okay? So not 229, 219. We will break out now and we'll be ready to begin at 10:15. Thank you.